Those 6 words, spoken with chilling calm, echoed in the empty space that opened beneath my feet. I can still feel the vertigo of that fall, the icy air of the hallway, and the rough touch of the marble drawing closer to my face. But what I will never forget was the sound, a laugh, sharp and triumphant, rising from the stair landing. My name is Catalina Rivas, and at 68 years old, that night taught me that danger doesn't always come with screams, but with an impeccable smile. For 3 years I shared this immense colonial house with her. 3 years in which the peace of my home dissolved into a toxic atmosphere of caution and mistrust. Since my son, Martin, married Tamara, the very essence of our lives has been poisoned. The irony of this place is striking. The 2-story house, with its peach-colored walls, was built by my late husband, Ricardo, a man who made his fortune erecting solid structures. Ricardo had the carved stone staircase, a pearly gray hue, brought from Guanajuato. It was a work of art, the heart of our home. What a macabre coincidence that this same work of art became the scene of my near-fatal demise. I occupied the south wing of the ground floor, which had been Ricardo's and my master bedroom for 40 years. Martin and Tamara lived upstairs, in what they called their private space. The arrangement, proposed by Martin after Ricardo's death, seemed sensible. "Mom, the house is too big for you alone. You stay in your sanctuary, and we in ours. That way we're together, but not mixed up." At first, the dynamic was tolerable. Tamara, a high-level executive at an interior design firm, was the embodiment of modern professionalism. Impeccable tailored suits, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that somehow made her dark eyes look more piercing. "Good afternoon, Dona Cata," she would greet me, with that formal address that maintained an unbreakable boundary between us. Never mother-in-law, never mom. Always Dona Cata. Courtesy as a weapon to maintain distance. Martin, my only son, followed in his father's footsteps at the construction company. He would leave before dawn and return when dinner was already cold. He was exhausted, but content. He was a good man, one of those who believe in decency and family harmony above all else. "How was your day, Mom?" he would ask me as he kissed my forehead at night. I would smile and say to him, "Everything's perfect, son. Relax." Because Tamara's little intrusions, the subtle incidents, seemed too insignificant to arouse his concern. One day, the hot water tap in my bathroom, which had never failed in 4 decades, loosened until it was unusable. I spent a whole week showering with ice-cold water in the middle of winter. Another day, my porcelain cups, an anniversary gift from Ricardo, appeared in the trash, smashed into 1,000 pieces. And the crown jewel, my wedding photograph, which hung prominently in the entryway, was found upside down. "Oh, Dona Cata, I'm so absent-minded," Tamara apologized, with an expression of unwavering innocence. "I dropped it by accident. It was all unintentional." But I had learned in life that eyes, unlike words, never lie. And Tamara's eyes, when Martin wasn't looking at her, were 2 fragments of dark ice. Chapter 2, The Perfume of Suspicion. To understand the magnitude of the damage, we have to go back 5 years, to the time of Ricardo's death. My husband, a self-made man from the countryside, had taught me to value resilience. We had 3 children, Elena and Sofia, my 2 daughters, who got married and left home, Monterrey and Guadalajara, respectively, and Martin, who stayed behind to inherit the construction company. When Ricardo died, this house, once a haven, became a sarcophagus of echoes. 8 bedrooms, a garden he designed, too many square meters of emptiness. Martin came every night. I could feel his worry. "Mom, it's too big. What if you fall? What if something happens to you?" I kept telling him, "I'm fine, Martin. Gloria comes every day, and you're just a phone call away." But he wasn't at peace. And then, he met Tamara. It was at an architecture exhibition. She worked in the luxury finishes department, a world of glitter and perfect surfaces. Martine returned that night with the eyes of a teenager. "Mom, I met someone. She's brilliant, ambitious. She doesn't need anything from me, she has her own career." I was happy. Martine was 38 years old and had a history of girlfriends who broke up because, according to him, none of them understood the magnitude of his commitment to his father's company. But tomorrow was different. Or so we thought. The first dinner at home. Expensive flowers, a wine that cost my entire paycheck. Tamara, in a designer beige dress, was a living work of art. "Mrs. Rivas, it's an honor. Martine has spoken so much to me about your role as a pillar of this family." She was charming, but her smile seemed artificial to me. It wasn't a smile born of joy, but of practice. I told myself it was just my motherly jealousy. During dinner, she complimented my cooking and my garden. But as I was clearing the table, I heard their voices from the living room. "Your mother is wonderful," Tamara said. "She's the best woman in the world," Martine replied. A silence. "And she lives alone in this huge house." "Yes, but my sisters live far away." "Have you thought about finding her, I don't know, a smaller place? A nursing home?" I froze. A nursing home. My own house. "No, Tamara." Martine's voice was firm. "My mother is staying at her house. That's all she asks of me." "Of course." "I'm sorry, love. It was silly." The tone sounded apologetic, but it seemed like a strategy to me. The first test run. 6 months later, the wedding. Elegant, understated. During the toast, Tamara took the microphone. "I want to thank Mrs. Catalina for raising such a wonderful man. I know it won't be easy to fill his shoes, but I will do my best." That phrase, "fill their shoes," wasn't a tribute, it was a declaration of territorial war. A few months after the wedding, Martine and Tamara moved into my house. It was after my fall. I slipped in the bathroom. I didn't break anything, but the blow to my hip was severe. The doctor diagnosed, "She needs constant care." Martine didn't hesitate, "You're coming to live with us." "Our house is your house, Dona Cata," Tamara said with that icy smile. So they moved into their apartment. And when my convalescence dragged on, Martine suggested a change. "Let's all move to your house, Mom. It's bigger. You downstairs, us upstairs. It's best for everyone." I agreed. I didn't think about Tamara. I didn't think about the intrusion. I only thought about the convenience of having my son close by. That was my mistake. Chapter 3, The Drip of Malevolence. The move was the surrender of my kingdom. At first, I tried to reclaim my role. I cooked, I took care of the house along with Gloria, my trusted employee. But Tamara interpreted it as an invasion. She, who spent her days away, saw my activity as a silent critique of her own absence. The subtle intrusions began. First, my belongings. My wedding photograph, hidden in a drawer. The embroidered cushions my mother gave me, replaced by a minimalist gray fabric. The lace curtains, discarded. "Oh, Dona Cata, I redecorated a bit," Tamara told me. "This house needed air fresh, neutral colors are trending." Refresh, as if my 40 years of life were something obsolete. But the worst part was the emotional manipulation. When Martine left, the atmosphere changed. "It must be difficult for you, Dona Cata, to see your son have another woman in his life. I suppose it's normal to cling to the past at your age. Martine says that you were always too protective, almost suffocating, I would say." Always with a smile, always with a tone that, if Martine had heard it, he would have interpreted as concern. I shrank back. I made myself small. I didn't want to be the jealous mother-in-law, the marriage wrecker. I censored myself. I stopped cooking Martine's favorites. I stopped giving my opinion. I tried to become a ghost. And she noticed. When a predator smells fear, it attacks harder. The incidents intensified, ceasing to be mere accidents. The cold water incident, the loosened key wasn't accidental. The plumber, called by Martine, was clear. Someone forced the nut, Don Martine. Tamara shrugged. How strange. The broken cups of my Ricardo cups, broken. I was so clumsy, Dona Cata. Tamara's face was impassive. Photography, I found her on the desk. Someone had scratched Ricardo's face with something sharp. I couldn't breathe. Was it you, Tamara? She looked at me with her dark eyes. Why would I do something like that, Mrs. Rivas? These old houses have a lot of accidents. I started locking my bedroom door. I started checking the kettle, the salt, the sugar. I started looking over my shoulder in my own house. But I didn't say anything to Martine. I couldn't. I didn't want to force him to choose between his mother and his wife. Chapter 4, The Lonely Tuesday. The day of the incident was a Tuesday. On Tuesdays, Gloria, my employee, didn't come in. I was alone at home until Tamara returned. That Tuesday, in particular, Tamara arrived early. Barely 3 in the afternoon. I heard her heels against the marble floor, then silence as she went up to her bedroom. She came down a few minutes later, dressed in sportswear, without her executive disguise. I was in the kitchen, preparing hibiscus water. I was going to cook the turkey in chipotle sauce for dinner, Martine's favorite. He had the heat low, the aroma of chilies toasting on the griddle filled the air. Do you need help, Dona Cata? I turned around. Tamara was in the doorway. There was something different about her posture. The mask had slipped slightly, revealing a bare hardness. No, honey, thank you, I replied instinctively, using the term of endearment. I felt her tense up. Always cooking things up for Martine, aren't you? Her voice was strange, low, with a hint of suppressed resentment. As if I didn't exist. As if my marriage were a joke you make sure to remind everyone of every day. I dropped the wooden spoon. The sound was dull. Tamara, I didn't mean to. What didn't you want, Dona Cata? Didn't you want to remind me that this was your house first? That you were the first woman in his life? That Martine loves you with that unhealthy devotion he'll never give me? The air crackled with electricity. Her eyes frightened me. I took a step back. I never wanted to interfere, I said. But he does, she interrupted, her voice rising. Every time Martine says, my mother made tortillas like this. My mother knew how to iron. My mother, my mother, my mother. I'm sick of competing with a living ghost. I left the kitchen. I needed to escape that intensity, that brutal truth. I went upstairs. I'd forgotten something in the hallway above, by the stained glass window, the amber rosary Ricardo had given me. What a stupid thing to do. I reached the landing. I bent down to pick up the blessed beads. And then, I heard her footsteps behind me. It wasn't heels, it was the silent, predatory tread of her sneakers. I straightened up. I turned around. Tamara was a meter away. Her eyes were two dark, undeniable wells. Do you know what would be easier, Dona Cata? He whispered. If you weren't here anymore. And before I could blink, I felt the sharp impact of his 2 hands against my back. The shove was strong, precise, calculated. Chapter 5, The Silent Oath. I fell forward. My feet lost contact with the safety of the landing. I felt the void beneath my heels, the cold marble calling to me. I saw the world spinning, the gray, polished steps approaching at an impossible speed. In that instant of pure terror, survival took over. My old, arthritic hands opened desperately, searching for an anchor. They found the wrought iron railing, the ornate metal Ricardo had loved so much. I gripped it with primal strength. My fingers closed around the cold metal, my nails scraping the paint. My body swayed. My legs, helpless, dangled over the void. I felt a sharp pull in my shoulders, a tearing pain, but I didn't let go. And then, from above, I heard the sound that would seal his fate. They're going to think it was an accident. I looked up. Tamara was leaning over, watching me dangle. There was no panic. Just a macabre satisfaction. And she laughed. A dry laugh, devoid of any humanity. Let go, Dona Cata. You're old now. You've served your purpose. Let us live in peace. My arms were trembling. The metal was cutting into my palms. Tamara, I managed to hiss. Please. She tilted her head, studying me like a scientist studies an insect. Then, slowly, unhurriedly, she turned and retreated to the upper floor. She left me there, hanging, alone on the staircase. I don't know how much time passed. I managed to get one foot on the lower bar. Then, with an agonizing effort, I pulled myself up. Step by step, millimeter by millimeter, I made my way back to the landing. I remained on my knees, trembling, my hands bleeding. Tears flowed, but they weren't from physical pain. They were from an icy rage I had never known before. I got up. My legs could barely support me. I limped downstairs to my bedroom. I locked the door. Sitting on the edge of my bed, examining my cut hands, I remembered something Martin had installed 3 months ago, worried about my safety after my fall. Surveillance cameras. One of them, discreetly located in the corner of the library, pointed directly at the marble staircase. I washed my hands, put on a turtleneck to hide the red marks on my neck from the strain, and waited. My pain had become a weapon. Sometimes, the truth just needs patience to come to light. Part 2, Revelation and Conflict. Chapter 6, The Projection of Truth. The wait was the hardest ordeal of my life. I sat in my armchair, pretending to read, while the blood clotted in my palms. Every sound from upstairs, the opening and closing of drawers, a soft murmur of music, pierced my nerves. Tamara was upstairs, bathing or dressing, preparing for her role as a loving wife and impeccable executive, completely unaware of the weapon that had just been loaded against her. Martin arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, just in time for dinner. He came in with his usual greeting, left his briefcase in the hallway, and came straight to meet me. Mom. She kissed my forehead. How was your day? Did you get any rest? Perfect, son, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral, though I felt a slight tremor. Although I'm a little tired. I made your chipotle turkey, the favorite. Tamara came downstairs a few minutes later. Impeccable, in a black silk dress that contrasted with her white smile. She was the embodiment of effortless elegance. Dona Cata. Have you had dinner yet? I'm so sorry, I was delayed by a call, she said, walking briskly toward me. She asked if I was feeling all right, with a sweetness so palpable it made me nauseous. I think I see a little color on your neck. Did you bump yourself? No, honey. It's just a handkerchief. The drafts. I lied without blinking. We had dinner in the dining room. Martin, oblivious to the gunpowder-filled atmosphere, was talking about his day. Tamara nodded, laughed at just the right moments, and passed me the bread. A spectacle of harmony with a murderer sitting at the table. When we finished, I stood up. The time had come. Martin, son, can I ask you a favor? Sure, Mom. Whatever. Could you turn on the television? There's something I want you to see. Something I'd like to discuss. Martine frowned, puzzled by my solemn tone, but picked up the remote. Tamara, who had remained still in her chair, stopped her hand halfway to her wine glass. I connected my phone to the living room's large screen. I opened the security app. I searched for the recording from that afternoon. My hand trembled slightly as I pressed the button. Play. The high-definition image of the marble staircase appeared on the screen. I bent down to pick up the rosary. Tamara approached from behind, her shoes silent. The audio, captured by the microphone's sensitivity, was perfectly clear. "Mom, what is this?" asked Martin, his voice a whisper of disbelief. "Look, son. Please, just look." Tamara, in real life, jumped up. "Catalina! What are you doing? Turn that off." But it was too late. On the screen, I saw the zoom in, the exact moment of the sharp impact of Tamara's hands against my back. My body falling. My hands desperately clinging to the railing. My legs dangling. And then, Tamara's voice, clear and cold, filled the room. "They're going to think it was an accident." The laughter, that sharp, soulless laughter, exploded in the silence. Martine stood up slowly, the remote control slipping from his hand. The sound of the plastic hitting the marble was deafening. His face was a mask of horror, fury, and utter disbelief. He was a man who had just witnessed the demolition of his reality. He turned to Tamara, who had remained motionless by the table. His eyes, normally warm and full of nobility, were now two icy abysses. "Explain," said Martin, his voice barely audible, a murmur like crushed ice. "Explain to me that you tried to kill my mother." Chapter 7, Ice and Fury. Tamara's mask, so perfect and rigid for years, shattered. For the first time in my life, I saw the naked woman beneath the executive's disguise. Her lips moved, searching for an excuse, a lie big enough to cover up the recorded atrocity. "Martine, I can explain. It wasn't like that. She provoked me. She's been harassing me for months." "Shut up." Martine's voice exploded, powerful, like thunder. I'd never heard him shout like that. "Don't say another word. I saw the video, Tamara. I heard you laughing. You left her hanging, hoping she'd kill herself." She collapsed onto the sofa, tears welling up, but they weren't tears of remorse, but of rage and frustration at the failure. "And yes, I did want it. Because he took my marriage away from me. He's been humiliating me. My mother does this. My mother knows how to do that. You never chose me, Martine. It was always her, the saint, the perfect one." Martin looked at her with an expression of absolute disgust. "This isn't your house, Tamara. It's my mother's house. We live here because she allowed us to. Because she has a heart that you clearly don't possess. I gave you my last name, my life, my loyalty. And you repaid her by trying to kill her." She ran her hands over her face, breathing heavily. "Get out of this house," she said, each word a condemnation. "Now. Tonight. You can't do this." Tamara shouted. "We're married. We have rights." "Rights? You forfeited all your rights the moment you laid hands on my mother. I'm speaking with a lawyer tomorrow to initiate divorce proceedings. You won't see a penny. If you force me to go to court, this video will be made public, and then you won't just lose your marriage, you'll lose your freedom." Tamara, defeated by the irrefutable evidence, looked at me. She looked at me with those swollen, desperate eyes, seeking a pity I couldn't give her. "Don't act it, please, tell him it was a mistake." I looked at her without hatred, only with infinite sadness for what her soul had become. You had 3 years to build a home, Tamara. You chose to build a hell. I had to choose between silence and my life. I chose my life. Tamara stumbled up the stairs. We heard her dragging suitcases, the drawers opening and closing furiously. Martín collapsed into Ricardo's armchair, his face buried in his hands. His shoulders trembled with a dry, painful sob. "Forgive me, Mom," he stammered. "Forgive me for not seeing the monster. For putting you in danger." I sat down beside him and hugged him tightly. "Love blinds us, Martín. You wanted to believe she was good. There's no blame in that. The important thing is that I'm alive, and you're here." 50 minutes later, Tamara came downstairs carrying 3 expensive suitcases. She had lost all composure. Her makeup was smeared, her hair loose. She stopped in the doorway. "You won, Mrs. Rivas," he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "I hope you're happy." "I didn't gain anything, Tamara," I replied calmly. "You lost everything. That's the difference between us." The door closed behind her. The creak of the gate as it opened and closed marked the end of the invasion. Martín and I were left alone in the silence. The love he felt had shattered, leaving only pain and a terrible mistrust. Chapter 8: The Shadow of Doubt. The following days were strange. The house, though free of Tamara, felt colder. The silence wasn't peaceful, but rather one of trauma. Martín immersed himself in the construction company, leaving at dawn and returning late, exhausted and haggard. Work was his refuge. "I'm fine, Mom," she assured me, but her eyes were empty. I tried to maintain the routine, but the taste of cornbread and the aroma of flowers felt bitter. Gloria, my employee, was an anchor. That woman was pure evil, Dona Cata. Thank God she's gone. 2 weeks later, Tamara's first blow came from the outside. The doorbell rang. It was a young reporter from a local newspaper, with a notebook and a professional smile. "Ms. Catalina Rivas, this is Andrea Guzman, a reporter. I'm investigating a case of domestic abuse. I understand there was an incident with your daughter-in-law, Tamara Cifuentes. She has already given her version of events." My blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Tamara alleges that you harassed her, psychologically abused her, and orchestrated the stairwell incident, even manipulating video evidence, to force her out of the house and keep your son." Rage rose in my chest like bile. "That's a lie. I have the original video." "Tamara says the video is edited, Ms. Rivas. If you don't give your side of the story will be published with only your voice." I closed the door on him with my heart hammering in my chest. I called Martín. He was livid. "Don't talk to anyone, Mom. I'll take care of it." Martín returned with the construction company's lawyer, Ramiro Cardenas, a serious and experienced man. "Ms. Rivas," explained attorney Cardenas, "this is a dirty trick strategy. Tamara is trying to turn the narrative around. If she manages to portray herself as the victim of a controlling mother-in-law, she can argue domestic abuse and claim compensation. But we have the video. The video is solid, but public opinion is a cruel court. She's sowing doubt, a controlling, jealous mother-in-law and a young, successful wife. It's a powerful narrative." The next day, the headline in the local newspaper was devastating: "Executive accuses mother-in-law of abuse and staging her expulsion from the home." The article portrayed Tamara as an innocent victim, manipulated by a jealous matriarch who couldn't relinquish control over her son. It portrayed me as a controlling monster. The calls started. Neighbors, acquaintances, gossips. "Catalina, is it true you kicked that girl out?" "Mrs. Cata, they're saying you fabricated the video." I stopped answering. But the damage was already done. In the supermarket line, I felt the stares. The whispers. The truth didn't matter. In the public court, Tamara had won the first round. That night, Martin and I agreed, the truth not only needs to be told, it needs to be proven and defended. Chapter 9, The Legal Shield and the Public Face. Mr. Cardenas acted quickly. We prepared a strong public statement. Tomorrow we'll release the full video, with the timestamp, and hold a press conference, Martin declared. Let the people decide for themselves. The stress of being exposed to the public was almost as paralyzing as the fear of falling down the ladder. I, a woman who had lived in secrecy, was about to expose my deepest wounds before the cameras. The next day, at the construction company's offices, Martin, Mr. Cardenas, and I sat down before the media. The cameras were pointed at us. The lights were blinding. Attorney Cardenas presented the case. Then, the video of the stairwell was shown. The reporters' silence as they watched the attempted murder and listened to Tamara's laughter was the first victory. When we finished, a reporter raised her hand. Ms. Rivas, why do you think your former daughter-in-law invented this alternative version? I cleared my throat. My voice came out firmer than I felt. Because it's easier to be the victim than to face the consequences of your actions. She almost killed me. And instead of taking responsibility, she chose to destroy my reputation. That's just her nature. The conference was a success. The video was irrefutable. The next day, the same newspapers that had published the slander issued a retraction. The headline read, Irrefutable Video. Former daughter-in-law attacked mother-in-law. Public opinion took a complete turn. Tamara was now the villain. Martin, seeing the headlines, felt a fleeting sense of relief. Let her know what it feels like, Mom. Let her experience the humiliation firsthand. Don't become like her, Martin, I begged him. Don't use the thirst for revenge as a shield. Justice should be cold, not personal. Attorney Cardenas filed a formal complaint for attempted homicide and harassment and requested a restraining order. The order was granted, prohibiting Tamara from approaching within 200 meters of my house, Martin's office, or any other place where I might be. It's over, the lawyer said. He can't touch them anymore. But I knew that wasn't true. Evil doesn't need to physically touch you to destroy you. Chapter 10, The Seed of Resentment. 2 weeks later, the first act of direct defiance of the restraining order came. It was a rainy afternoon. Martin was at work. Gloria had gone out. I was in the garden, pruning my beloved rose bushes. I felt a pang in my stomach. Ricardo had given them to me. As I approached, I saw the horror. Someone had cut all the roses, not plucked them, but cleanly severed them, one by one, and had let them fall onto the wet ground. In the center of the rosebush, stuck in the soil with a wooden stick, was a photograph. It was a picture of Martin and Tamara's wedding, but my face was scratched with red ink. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, it said, "This is just the beginning." I called Martin. He was furious. I'm going to find her. She'll understand she can't provoke me. We had to report the violation of the restraining order to the police. The officer was skeptical. Ms. Rivas, the order prohibits physical contact and presence. An anonymous note and some cut flowers, that's intimidation, yes, but proving it's her without fingerprints is difficult. Martin decided to take matters into his own hands. He hired a private security team. 8 new cameras, motion sensors on every door and window, and an alarm system connected directly to a monitoring center. Your house looks like a prison, Mom, I said, looking at the flashing red lights. It's either prison or a funeral, Mom. I choose prison. The next signal appeared on the windshield of Martin's car at his office, tell your mom to enjoy her last peaceful days. Accidents happen, especially to old women who don't know when to keep their mouths shut. Martin was on the verge of collapse. He wasn't sleeping anymore. He was obsessively watching the cameras, searching for a shadow, a movement. She wanted war, now she has it, she told me. But in her eyes I saw fear. Chapter 11, The Infiltration of Suspicion. Tamara's strategy evolved from physical threats to internal destruction. She began using anonymous emails, addressed to Martine and my daughters, Elena and Sophia, sowing seeds of doubt about my family secrets. The first email to Martine was devastating. Ask your mother what else she's hidden from you. Ask her about the money your father Ricardo left behind. Ask her why your sisters Elena and Sophia left home so quickly. Ask her who she really is. Martin showed me the mail, his eyes filled with terrible confusion. What money, Mom? Is there something you haven't told me about Dad's will? Son, it's a lie. It's garbage. Your father left the company, this house, and some savings that were divided equally between the 3 children and me. It's all documented. She just wants to create discord. But the doubt was already there. Tamara had struck where it hurt the most, the trust one had built with Ricardo and the loyalty of my children. The following email was for Elena in Monterrey. Your brother is sacrificing himself for a mother who doesn't deserve it. Ask him why Ricardo never changed the will when he got sick. Ask him why the house was left solely in her name. Ask him what he promised her in return. Elena called me furious, demanding explanations. I assured her that the house was in my name according to Ricardo's wishes, to secure my old age, and that upon his death, the house would be divided among the 3 of us. It's all in my will, I explained, but as I hung up, I realized my mistake. I wasn't sure if I had shown them the legal documents. Conversations with my children became tense. There were awkward silences. Exchanging glances that excluded me. The feeling that I was being judged in my own living room became unbearable. Mom, Martin asked me one night, are you sure Dad wanted the house to stay alone, in your name? Not to doubt you, but just to clarify. Martin, for God's sake. Do you doubt me? No, but I'm tired of not knowing what's true and what isn't. Tamara is an expert at this. If we split up, she wins. And she was right. The physical bullying was terrible, but the psychological bullying, the kind that attacked the very foundations of my family, was what was truly destroying me. Chapter 12, The Encounter of the Sisters and the Mutilated Doll. My daughters, Elena and Sophia, decided to come. The panic in my voice, the tension in Martine, and the poisonous content of the emails forced them to act. They arrived like a whirlwind, injecting life and order into the bunker of fear that our house had become. Sophia, practical and organized, took charge of digital security. Elena, sensitive and emotional, took care of Martin, pulling him out of the abyss of guilt. Mom, this is over, Sophia declared. We're not going to let that snake steal your peace. One afternoon, I ventured out, escorted by my 2 daughters and a security guard. We were going to buy groceries. It was an attempt at normalcy. Upon returning, we found a package at the entrance, addressed to me. It had no return address. We opened it in the kitchen. Inside was an antique porcelain doll, one of those collectible dolls worth a fortune. It was beautiful, dressed in white lace. But its eyes had been gouged out. Instead of glass pupils, there were 2 empty, dark sockets. Around the doll's neck, tied with a red ribbon, was a note: accidents don't hurt if you don't see them coming. Elena's shriek broke the silence. I dropped the box. The porcelain shattered on the kitchen marble. It was the climax of the psychological torture. Martin returned, and upon seeing the scene, his face transformed into a mask of cold fury. That's it. It's over, he hissed. He grabbed his truck keys. Martin, don't go. That's what he wants. Sophia shouted. I'm not going to call the police. I'm going to handle it myself. He returned 2 hours later, his knuckles red, his shirt torn, his eyes bloodshot. He wouldn't say where he'd gone, but he showed me a picture of his hand on the hood of the car. I told him it's over, he said hoarsely. That if he comes near you again, I won't call the system. I'll make sure he regrets it myself. The next day, Attorney Cardenas, alerted by Sophia, secured the arrest warrant for harassment, witness intimidation, and violation of the restraining order. The doll was the final piece of evidence. Tamara was arrested at a hotel downtown. The relief was immense. But at 4 a.m, my phone rang. An unknown number. On a cold impulse, I answered. Hello, Mrs. Catalina. Tamara's voice, strangely calm, sounded so close it was as if she were in the room. I know you're in prison. What's your name? Prisons have privileges, Ms. Rivas. I just wanted to tell you something. I'm leaving, yes. But you taught me that if I can't win, at least I can make sure everyone loses. I have friends on the outside. And they know where to find you. The line went dead. The fear returned, but this time, it was an informed fear. Tamara had an invisible army of resentment. Chapter 13, The Forging of the Witness. The judge's order was clear. Tamara would remain in pretrial detention until the trial, given the rapes and the imminent threat. We had 2 months to prepare for the legal battle. My life became like the courtroom of Attorney Cardenas. The prosecutor, an ambitious young man, prepared us for the cross-examination, which would be brutal. Ms. Rivas, the defense is going to try to portray you as the villain, the prosecutor warned. They're going to say that you're a controlling mother-in-law, that you manipulated your son, that you made Tamara feel like an intruder. Licenciado Cardenas attacked me with merciless questions, testing my pain. Ms. Rivas, is it true that you, a woman without paid employment, lived in an 8-room mansion, allowing your son and your working wife to live in the shadow of your luxuries? I am only the owner of my house, by the will of my late husband. And don't you think so, invasive cooking and doing the laundry for a grown, married man? Wasn't that an attempt to show Tamara that she would never be enough? That question hit me like a ton of bricks, because it touched on a truth I'd been questioning myself. The line between maternal love and intrusion was very thin. I'll say I did it out of love. That my way of loving is to serve, to care. That I never intended to hurt anyone. If Tamara interpreted it that way, it was because of her own insecurities, not because of my actions. Good. Controlled honesty will be our weapon. Don't lie, but don't apologize for being a mother. The preparation was agonizing, dredging up old vulnerabilities. We had to address the issue of the will, the tensions with my own daughters that Tamara had sown. It was a psychological war being waged within my family, with the aim of destroying my credibility. Martine, Elena, and Sophia were on tenterhooks. Sophia, with her cybersecurity skills, managed to trace the emails, but they ended up on offshore servers. They're professionals, Mom. It's very difficult, but I know it's her. The day before the trial, Martin came to my bedroom. He lay down next to me, just like when he was a child. Mom, he whispered. Do you ever regret not letting her go? Not sacrificing the house for peace? If I hadn't had this house, Martine, I'd be dead today. And if I hadn't shown that video, the silence would have killed me. What we did was defend life, son. There's no regret in that. Chapter 14, The Court Theater. The day of the trial arrived with a torrential downpour. The journalists, the cameras, the tension. We entered the courthouse as one. I was escorted, with Martine and my daughters on either side. At the defense table, I saw Tamara. She had been made up for the drama. Her face, lacking its executive edge, seemed fragile. Her eyes were red. The orange prison uniform made her look smaller, more like a victim. The prosecutor opened the case based on the compelling evidence of the video. It was irrefutable. Then I went up to the stand. I told my story. My 40 years of marriage, the house, the loneliness, the move, the small acts of harassment, the shove, the fear, the laughter. I spoke calmly, my voice clear. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination. He was relentless. He attacked me with the questions we had rehearsed: control of the house, the alleged invasion of privacy, questions about Ricardo's will. I could see doubt on the jury's faces when he asked me why my own daughters had doubted me about the inheritance. When I stepped off the stage, I was exhausted but not broken. The next day, Tamara went up to testify. She transformed into the perfect actress. She wept uncontrollably, begging for forgiveness. Your Honor, I am not a murderer. I am a wounded woman who reacted. I felt invisible, unloved. It was hell. I just wanted him to see me, to understand that I mattered too. The shove was a moment of madness, of desperation. I regret it every second. The prosecutor attacked her with subsequent harassment, the doll, the threats to my daughters. Those messages were from friends of mine, angry with me, but I never asked them to hurt me, she lied. The call from prison was to apologize, to warn her that my pain would haunt her, to protect her from my friends. It wasn't a threat, it was a plea. It was unbelievable. One lie after another, all constructed to make her appear to be the victim of emotional abuse. The jury retired to deliberate. The wait was a 6-hour ordeal. Finally, they returned. The spokesman stood up. How do you find the accused on the charge of attempted murder? The world stopped. Culpable. My breath returned to my lungs with a gasp of icy air. Martine hugged me, crying. Sofia and Elena joined the embrace. Jimena, at the defense table, remained completely still, her face blank, like a statue of salt. Chapter 15, 10 Years and the Void. 2 weeks later we returned for the sentencing. The judge, with a stony face, handed down the ruling. Ms. Cifuentes, you not only attempted to take another person's life, but you also unleashed a systematic campaign of harassment and intimidation. You have shown no genuine remorse. This court sentence is 10 years in prison without the possibility of parole, plus a permanent restraining order. 10 years. A full decade. I expected to feel satisfaction, but I only felt a profound emptiness. Nobody won in these stories. I got my life back, yes, but at an incalculable cost: my son's innocence, the peace of my home, my trust in people. Tamara stood up. Before being escorted away, she looked at me. There was no anger, no hatred. Just a complete absence of emotion. It was a much more worrying look than her fury. This doesn't end here, she whispered, and was led out of the room. The following months were a slow recovery. We removed the cameras, keeping only the essential ones. Martine, with the help of his sisters, began the healing process. The divorce was finalized. Tamara signed the papers from prison, without objection. Martine slowly returned to his old self. He started dating Andrea, an architect. He asked me if I liked him. I like him a lot, son. And it's clear he makes you happy. That's all that matters. A year and a half after the sentencing, I received the call that changed everything. It was the prison director. Ms. Rivas, I regret to inform you that Tamara Cifuentes passed away this morning. Stroke. Natural causes. We are investigating, but there are no signs of violence. Tamara was dead. The woman who had terrified me for years. I felt an icy emptiness. Justice had collected its debt, not with vengeance, but with the coldness of natural law. A week later, a package arrived. It came from the prison, a letter and a notebook. A diary that Tamara had written in prison. Curiosity was stronger than fear. I opened the diary. I read her words, about her broken childhood, her terror of being abandoned, about how she became obsessed with Martin and his perfect life. And about how she felt inadequate in the face of the saintly mother, who did everything right. In the end, I realized she was never the problem. I was. If I could go back, I wouldn't push her away. I would tell her the truth. I would tell her I was sorry. And in the last entry, I forgive myself. It's the only thing I can do. I hope Catalina finds peace too. I closed the notebook. I cried. Not for her, but for the pain that had broken us all. I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. The shadow of the staircase had finally faded. To be continued in Part 3, Reconstruction and Legacy.